The Grand River Valley of central Ontario was settled by a few hundred homesteaders. Many were Mennonite, most were German. The town of Waterloo grew up around a few mills on the Grand River. By the 1840s, the town boasted 3 German-style breweries. But it was British-style whiskey, not beer, that would soon put Waterloo on the map, thanks to Joseph E. Seagram. Seagram was so proud of his British heritage that he played up his resemblance to King Edward VII. He came to Waterloo to manage a mill and to make rye whiskey. Within a few years, he was selling 1 million gallons a year, and as his distillery prospered, so too did the town of Waterloo.
I think the town and Seagram's went hand in hand in a way that one can hardly identify in the present. With the distillery, it becomes a major employer. And the name Waterloo is on all the labels and sent worldwide, so that Waterloo and the distillery become one and the same.
Joseph E. Seagram relied on a forceful personality and a deep pocketbook to forge a British identity for his town, distinct from the Germanness of nearby Berlin, now known as Kitchener.
It was the Seagram's identity as Anglo-Saxon in the midst of a large German community. It was the fact that he was involved in the Queen's Plate and in horse racing, which was not another thing that the German businessmen had done. And it was the fact that Joseph Seagram himself was the Member of Parliament for 3 terms, and people began to identify Waterloo with Seagram, with Joseph E. Seagram, rather than with the German businessmen from Berlin.
Horses from Seagram's stables won the Queen's Plate, Canada's most prestigious race, 20 times.
Whenever Seagram would win a race, he would telegram the results back to Waterloo, and they would raise the Seagram flag on the distillery flagpole, and the whole town would turn out to rejoice. And the town took its identity with Seagram. It was Waterloo as well as Seagram that was winning the Queen's Plate, and that made it a national event rather than just something local or regional.
What remains of those glory years is displayed in the Seagram Museum, an impressive tribute to an industry now in decline.
Oh, I just can't seem to get away from Seagram. It's been my life.
Peter Melrose is as much a part of Seagram's history as many of the artifacts on display. After 40 years with the company, Melrose refused to retire. He wanted to stay on as a guide in the museum.
Well, it all started out here back in 1857, and that's why we're here. That's why our museum is here.
Melrose says it will be a sad day when the distillery next door shuts for good.
Don't even want to think about it. It was a shock to hear that it was closing.
It's a sentiment shared by many in Waterloo. Across from Seagram's is Angie's Kitchen. Like her father and grandfather before her, Teresa Hugo relies on the plant for much of her business. She says closing Seagram's will be a tragedy.
This whole community loses 200 people who can afford to dine anywhere, let alone Angie's.
Although Seagram's no longer dominates Waterloo's economy, it still dominates the city. Witness Seagram's Stadium. Everywhere you turn here, you see the Seagram black and gold. On the flag at City Hall, on all municipal cars and trucks at the University of Waterloo. But the decision to close this plant was made in Montreal, far from the black and gold of Waterloo. Sometime in the next year, when the last barrel is rolled out of the warehouse and uncorked, a little history will drain out along with the aged whiskey.
There is a great sense when the distillery closes that it is not just the closing of a company, but it's a tradition around which the life of the city of Waterloo revolved and intertwined over more than 100 years.
For Sunday Edition, I'm Joanne Schnurr.